Good morning, my friends. Welcome to today's episode. This is episode 15 of the Blunt Cake series. And if you're new to me, welcome. I'm Marshall Berkshire, and I help codependents rediscover their well-being and happiness. Today, we'll jump into this episode of being useful. Being needed does not equal being loved. So, if you are new to me, I want to invite you to join the community. The community is your safe haven here on the internet, and I need to share this out to the community. The community is where you find guidance, tools, and support in your journey beyond your codependency. You can discover that you're not alone in this, you're not crazy, and you can find shelter, support, and inspiration in your healing journey going forward. The link is above on Facebook, below on YouTube, and if you're on YouTube, hit that subscribe button. Thank you guys as well for doing that. Actually making me kind of popular on the YouTubes, and I like that. That's useful. Gets this message out, helps us create more well-being and healing in the world, which is my objective. Hey, Crystal, good morning. A shout out to all you students, all of my students that are watching this or will watch this, especially if you've done the live version of the Heal Yourself strategy. Congratulations on completing it, because that's a big deal. Really proud of you guys taking that feat on. All right. Blunt Cake episode number 15. Being useful and being needed doesn't equal being loved. So, in codependency, usefulness and being needed gives us a sense of purpose, a sense of connection, a sense of value in the relationship. And this makes sense, honestly, because, if we have not been loved for who we are, then we're going to seek connection and seek being valuable by being useful or by being needed by the other person. Good morning, Deborah. And this is a big deal because we are confusing love with utility. So there's two types of value that we have in the world. First type of value is called transactional value. This is the value of what we do. It's the usefulness, the utility that we provide. And it's usually a skills-based thing. Like, I'm really good at the cooking. I'm really good at the mechanic thing or the computer thing, or really good at making people laugh, or blah, blah, blah. It's the utility of what we bring to a relationship that's valued by the other people. And this shows up as being asked to do specific kinds of things, but not really being included in things that create connection, that create belonging, that share space and presence. So instead, we start to feel like we're maybe even being used. It's like, well, they only want me around when they want or need something from me. Good morning, Jasmine. It's nice to see you. And we get, well, if we're being neglected, if we are not being seen and valued on a regular basis for who we are, if our parents, our siblings, our peers aren't just plainly spending time with us, being in our presence, being interested in what we're experiencing, what we're thinking, what we're feeling, what we're doing, they're not expressing a warmth of, I'm grateful you exist. We feel that. We instinctively understand this. This is not something that's like real loud and like, oh, well, I need, it's something that doesn't even have to be pointed out to us. We know something isn't there. We just don't know what to put our finger on in that moment. And this is what I would call relational neglect. You're not being held in presence with others. Others are not sharing or demonstrating to you how much they love you, not how much they love what you do. That's the difference here. When we're used to being needed, when we're used to being useful, we think that means love because they're paying attention to us. We get a little praise for it. We get a little appreciation, maybe some affection for it, some presence with it. And those all feel really good. They feel really good when we're being neglected. These are breadcrumbs that keep us hooked on being people pleasers, on being perfectionistic, on trying to fix, control, enable, help others. This is where we confuse our second type of value with transactional value. So again, we have that transactional value where we're being valued for what we do, for the usefulness we bring to a situation, the utility. The second value is called innate value. This is the value that we all innately, inherently have because we exist. It's not a value we can add to. It's not a value we can take from. It's not a value we can change. It's a value we have to come into contact with and build our awareness of in our lives. And when we're not being valued in our presence by others, especially as children, we are not being attuned to this innate value. We're being attuned to the value, the transactional value, the utility we bring to a relationship, but not the intrinsic value we bring as being who we are. This is where we end up feeling empty. We feel lost. We feel confused. We feel a deep need to be seen, to be valued, to be loved. And so we amp up the perfectionism. We amp up the people-pleasing. We amp up our skills and our utility, and we try to make ourselves more and more and more useful to others. And this leads to burnout. It leads to panic. It leads to anxiety. We've lost, or we've never had ourselves, so we're more and more lost in this transactional, unreliable, chaotic realm of utility. We start to wonder, we start to feel rather, that our value is unstable and completely determined by the approval or level of pleasure someone else demonstrates towards what we do. This is why that we can feel on top of the world in 1 minute and in the depths of hell the next one, because someone disapproved of us or someone approved of us. We're just back and forth, up and down. It becomes very, very chaotic for us. And that's because we've confused love, being loved, with being useful and being needed. This is also where we have forged connection, a sense of belonging and emotional warmth with other human beings. And honestly, this has been part of my big journey, is moving out of this utility and moving into the presence. Being valued because I exist. Valuing myself because I exist. Valuing others because they exist. Getting more and more in contact with this presence or respect, acknowledgement of innate value. This journey requires us to move through a separation stage. So we have forged connection through utility, through being useful and being needed. Now we have to retrieve our value from that and start discovering what it's like to be valued because of who you are. This often leads to the collapse of relationships and friendships that were built on the utility model, and it leads to a period of space, like getting used to a sense of separation from others as we build presence and connection with ourselves and with the other people in our world. Building that warmth, that consistent, reliable warmth of, I'm glad you exist, I'm grateful you're here. You matter to me. That transition from utility, love of utility, or being loved by utility, confusing love with utility, to really being loved, that's our challenge. It's going to feel really weird. It's going to feel very vulnerable. It's going to bring up, usually within us, a lot of our attachment fears. Fear of abandonment, fear of rejection, fear of being not enough, things like that. Because this is all included in that utility element of relationship. And coming into the connection aspect of relationship, where we're loved for who we are. We're building relationship around connection rather than that utility. We're going to have to learn to feel into the vulnerability of connection and the fact that we don't get to control it, and nor do they. This is something that's freely met in the middle by people who are genuinely interested in knowing and seeing and valuing each other. And once we make it past that hump, and it is a challenge at times. We start to experience stability, reliability, and this really consistent warmth of love and connection with ourselves. That's being loved. That is what we're really seeking. That's what nourishes us in relationship. Now, utility has its place in a connection-centered relationship, and that utility shows up as some aspects of compatibility, skill levels, things that we like to do together, stuff like that. But they enhance the connection. They bring flavor and life. They add to that flavor and life that exists in the connection. It is not the connection, though. Because if those things weren't there, there's still the warmth, there's still the joy that the person's in your life, that they feel towards you and you feel towards them. So it's a very mutually oriented experience around who we are. And I'm just grateful you exist kind of energy and experience. So I'm going to look at the comments here. So Deborah, in that space now, very lonely, feeling lost. Yes, it is. It's a lonely space because now we're seeking this real warmth. And here's the trick. In the utility side of this, we're seeking quantity. We're trying to get enough people to love and like us and make us useful and to need us in order for us to feel adequate. Because this idea of adequate is a utility-based concept. Like, the car is a utility and it needs to be adequate, meaning it needs to be able to go down the road. You're not a fracking utility, my friend. You are a human being. There isn't any necessity towards adequacy in this aspect of being loved for who you are, because we're not earning it. It's something that's present and is freely given. But the journey in this, the challenge of going out and connecting with people who see and understand this, it comes back to this quantity issue. Because in utility, it's about quantity, so it can, fulfill our sense of adequacy. In this arena, it's about quality. So you won't have a high number of people who do this, but you won't need that because you're going to have a high quality level of connection. And it takes time. It takes risk. It takes practice. And it takes experience. Because we're moving into a world we don't necessarily understand very well, if at all. We don't know what it's like to be loved for who we are. So we have a lot of discovery to make in what that feels like, what that sounds like, what that behaves like. Some of the signals there is when we're being loved for who we are, we do not feel threatened in the relationship. Like, they're not going to just pull it away from us. They're not going to leave because we didn't satisfy them. A relationship has conditions, but those conditions of what ends a relationship are either going to be incompatibility, or it's going to be incompatibility in a healthy relationship, and that incompatibility can fall into skills level problems, maturity level, or there's abuse. If there's abuse, that relationship isn't going to survive, at least not in a healthy way. It's not based on utility. It's based on how we function together and the dominant result we create. And if we're building compatible, fulfilling relationships in our life, it's going to be built from the premise of who we are and not necessarily what we do. What we do will be an expression of who we are. And to the compatible, healthy people in our world, that'll be valued and appreciated rather than taken for granted and obligated, like they'll expect it from you. So it's quality we're going for. So it's that warmth of being received in who we are. Relationships don't end because we're not making them happy, because we're not doing what they want. Instead, we're being seen and valued and understood for who we are. That's that warmth that is there. There's a stable attachment is built in that. So that's one of the core signals of being loved for who you are, is you're kept for who you are. You're not being discarded. You're also being, they just want to spend time with you. They like presence with you. They don't need to be doing anything with you. It's just like, I just want to be around you. It's how I feel about my girlfriend. It's how I feel about my kids. It's just like, I like your presence. That's being just loving someone for who they are. So those are two positive, strong signals that you're being valued for you. So watch out for those in your relationships. Now, utility does exist in all relationships, but again, in connection-centered relationships, this and the utility, the skills and benefits we bring to the relationship enhance it. It doesn't create the connection. So it is a very, very new world. Very big challenge. But we also have to be very sober with ourselves and realize that being needed and being useful doesn't equal love. There's a lot of people out there who think you're useful and who think that you bring real strong benefits to it, but that doesn't mean they love you. They love what you do, they like what you do, but that doesn't mean they have regard for who you are. And we have to be willing to acknowledge that and discern it. And you're being used. Someone's loving what you do because they only ask for your presence and if they want something. It's very utility-based. It feels very focused on them and what makes them happy, rather than, hey, I want to spend time with you and be present with you. I want to enjoy the experience of you in my world. So that's the magic there, my friends. So go out there. Make sure you're also not treating yourself with this transactional value. Don't treat yourself from the utility of usefulness. We do it all the time. I'm useful because of this. My value is because of this thing or this accomplishment or this skill or that thing over there. That's not loving ourselves. Loving ourselves is I'm grateful I exist. I'm grateful I'm here. Another way in which we apply utility to ourselves and others to us and us to them is that we get upset when we don't feel a certain way. I'm really just hate myself because I'm not happy. That's utility. Loving who we are is I accept that I'm feeling the way I am. I respect it. It's real. It's valid. It matters to me. That's an act of real love there. So, gotta be real mindful about how we are treating ourselves in this world. And it's really common to be very transactional with ourselves because that's what we know how to do. It's what we were raised in. It's what most of us do. So it's very normal. It's very rational that we do that. And now we can add another option to it by becoming more kind, more loving, and more gentle with ourselves. So that's today's blunt cake. That is today's training here in the happiness after codependency world. So thank you guys for being here. I appreciate you. Remember that you're worth knowing, loving, and keeping. Go gently with yourself in this. And I will see you guys in our next training. Bye-bye.